In this episode, we move one layer closer to the software people use every day because a great deal of security risk appears not only in networks or devices, but in the behavior of the applications running on them. Application behavior and anomaly detection are about understanding what a program normally does, then noticing when that behavior changes in ways that suggest misuse, compromise, error, or hidden malicious activity. For a brand new learner, this topic matters because many attacks do not start with a dramatic system failure. They begin with a web application making strange requests, a trusted business program launching unusual processes, or a service interacting with data in ways that do not fit its normal purpose. When you learn to think in terms of expected behavior instead of only known bad signatures, you begin to see that security is often about broken patterns. A secure application environment is not just one that blocks obvious attacks. It is one where unusual actions can be recognized early enough to investigate before a small problem becomes a larger incident. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A good starting point is to define what application behavior actually means. Every application has a role, and that role shapes how it is expected to act under normal conditions. A payroll application should interact with payroll records, approved users, and the systems that support payroll functions. A customer portal should receive certain kinds of web requests, deliver specific types of responses, and communicate with back-end services in predictable ways. Even a simple office productivity tool has recognizable habits, such as the kinds of files it opens, where it stores temporary data, and how it interacts with the operating system. When security analysts talk about application behavior, they are looking at those habits as observable patterns. They want to know what the application usually does, who uses it, what resources it touches, how often it runs, what it connects to, and whether those actions make sense for its business purpose. Without that understanding, strange activity can easily pass as harmless just because it involves a familiar program. Anomaly detection is the process of identifying behavior that departs from what is expected. That sounds simple at first, but it is more subtle than just looking for anything unusual. In real business environments, change happens constantly. Applications are updated, usage patterns shift, business cycles create busy periods, and new integrations appear over time. That means analysts cannot treat every difference from yesterday as a sign of compromise. Instead, anomaly detection tries to answer a more thoughtful question, which is whether the observed behavior is unusual in a way that matters. If a human resources application suddenly begins making large data transfers to an unfamiliar destination at midnight, that may matter. If the same application sees slightly heavier traffic during annual benefits enrollment, that may be normal. The value of anomaly detection comes from separating ordinary variation from meaningful deviation. For beginners, this is a useful mindset because cybersecurity is not just about spotting the unknown. It is about deciding whether the unknown fits the role and purpose of the application involved. One of the most important concepts in this topic is the baseline. A baseline is the understood picture of normal behavior for an application over time. It may include when the application is busiest, what users normally access it, which systems it talks to, how much data it handles, what kinds of requests it receives, and which errors appear during ordinary operations. Without a baseline, anomaly detection becomes far weaker because there is no stable reference point for comparison. Analysts would be left judging events in isolation, and isolated events often look either more alarming or less important than they really are. A baseline does not have to be perfect to be useful, but it does need enough history and enough context to show what is ordinary for that application in that environment. This is important because normal behavior is not universal. An e-commerce site during a holiday season does not behave like an internal ticketing system on a quiet Monday morning. Good anomaly detection respects those differences instead of forcing every application into the same expectations. Applications can behave abnormally in many different ways, and not all of them look like direct attacks at first glance. An application might process requests at a much higher rate than usual, begin failing repeatedly, access files it has never needed before, generate errors tied to malformed input, or start communicating with systems outside its normal set of dependencies. A web application may receive a flood of unusual requests that suggest automated probing rather than normal human use. An internal business application may start spawning operating system tools, which could indicate exploitation or abuse. Even changes in timing can matter. A service that normally runs quietly during business hours but suddenly becomes very active overnight may deserve review, especially if that timing does not fit known maintenance or business processes. The main lesson for beginners is that abnormal behavior is not only about something breaking. Sometimes the application still appears to work normally for end users while, underneath the surface, it is acting in ways that suggest someone is testing it, abusing it, or using it as part of a larger compromise. User interaction plays a major role in application behavior because applications do not exist in isolation from the people and accounts that use them. A program may behave normally for one group of users, but abnormally for another. For example, a finance application being accessed by finance staff during predictable reporting periods may look entirely routine. The same application being accessed heavily by an account from an unrelated department, from an unusual location, or at a strange hour may raise more serious questions. The application is not suspicious merely because it is busy. It becomes suspicious when the pattern of use does not align with role, history, or business purpose. This is one reason application behavior analysis often overlaps with identity analysis. If a valid account begins using an application in a way that does not fit the person behind it, the issue may be stolen credentials, insider misuse, or a breakdown in access control. For a CySA Plus learner, this shows how application security depends on understanding not just software activity, but who is driving that activity and why it is happening. Another important area is how an application interacts with the system around it. Applications rely on files, memory, processes, libraries, services, databases, and network connections to do their jobs. When those relationships change in unexpected ways, defenders pay attention. If a document reader suddenly tries to modify security settings, or a web application begins creating command shells, or an internal business tool starts loading components from strange locations, the application may be doing something far outside its normal role. Attackers often abuse trusted applications because familiar software attracts less suspicion than an obviously malicious program. They may exploit a flaw in the application, use it to execute code indirectly, or hijack one of its legitimate features for an illegitimate purpose. For beginners, this is a key idea. You are not always looking for a clearly evil file with an obviously bad name. Sometimes you are looking at a trusted application doing something untrusted, and anomaly detection helps reveal that mismatch between known identity and unexpected behavior. Web applications deserve special attention because they are so often exposed to outside users and therefore receive both legitimate traffic and hostile attention. A web application has normal patterns in its requests, response sizes, input types, session behavior, and interaction with supporting systems. Anomalies may appear as bursts of unusual requests, odd parameter values, repeated attempts to access functions out of sequence, or behavior that suggests automated scanning rather than ordinary browsing. Attackers may probe for weak input handling, broken access controls, or opportunities to force the application into revealing more than it should. In many cases, the application still keeps serving pages, which means the danger may not look obvious to business users. Analysts therefore watch for patterns that indicate the application is being tested, pressured, or manipulated in ways that do not fit real customer activity. For a beginner, this is useful because it highlights that application anomaly detection is not just about failures. It is also about spotting intent hidden inside technically valid interactions that look acceptable until you examine the pattern more closely. It is also worth understanding that not every anomaly is malicious. Applications can behave strangely because of bugs, poor updates, configuration mistakes, unexpected business growth, or unusual but legitimate user behavior. A new software release might change how often an application talks to its database. A reporting cycle might create data access patterns that do not appear during the rest of the month. A partner integration might cause a service to receive request types it never saw before. This matters because good analysts avoid treating anomaly detection as a shortcut to certainty. An anomaly is a reason to investigate, not a final verdict. That is actually one of the strengths of this approach. It encourages curiosity instead of blind assumption. When something falls outside the baseline, the analyst asks whether it reflects compromise, misuse, operational change, error, or some new business condition. For new learners, this is important because mature security work depends on disciplined interpretation. The goal is not to react to every oddity as an emergency, but to understand why the oddity exists and whether it creates real risk. Because anomaly detection can produce false positives, context becomes one of the most valuable tools an analyst has. A suspicious pattern gains or loses significance depending on the application's purpose, the sensitivity of the data involved, the account performing the action, the timing, and the surrounding evidence. A sudden spike in requests to a public marketing site may matter less than a smaller but unexplained burst of access to a medical records platform. An internal application touching a new server may be acceptable during a planned migration, but far more concerning if no approved change exists. Analysts therefore combine application observations with change records, user activity, network logs, host events, and business calendars whenever possible. This broader view helps reduce noise and improve judgment. For a beginner, the big idea is that anomaly detection works best when it is connected to real-world knowledge of the environment. Security is stronger when the team understands what the business is doing, because many strange patterns are only meaningful when seen against that larger backdrop. Another valuable point is that application behavior can reveal both direct attacks and indirect compromise. In some cases, the application itself is the target. Attackers may try to exploit it through malformed input, forced browsing, session abuse, or privilege escalation. In other cases, the application is not the end goal, but rather a path to something else. A compromised application might be used to reach a database, access sensitive files, move laterally, or hide malicious activity under the cover of trusted software. That is why analysts care not only about whether the application is being harmed, but also whether it is being used as a vehicle for further activity. An internal service that starts requesting information far beyond its normal needs may suggest credential theft or backend abuse. A trusted automation platform that begins making odd administrative changes may indicate that an attacker has found a way to act through it. For new learners, this broadens the perspective. Application anomalies are not just software problems. They may be early signs of a much wider security event unfolding through a system the organization relies on every day. The rise of cloud services and distributed applications has made this topic even more important because many applications no longer live neatly on one server inside one building. They may depend on application programming interfaces, remote identity services, cloud storage, third-party platforms, and multiple back-end components spread across different environments. That means application behavior now includes more dependencies, more data flows, and more places where abnormal patterns can appear. A cloud-hosted service that suddenly accesses data at a scale far beyond its normal role may indicate abuse just as clearly as an on-premises application doing the same thing. A change in how one component talks to another can also signal a problem, especially if the connection is new, excessive, or unrelated to the service's function. For beginners, this shows that anomaly detection must follow the application wherever it operates. The principle stays the same even when the architecture changes. Defenders still ask what the application should be doing, what it is actually doing, and whether the difference suggests risk that deserves investigation. A useful way to think about this topic is to imagine an internal purchasing application that employees use to request supplies and approve spending. Under normal conditions, it sees modest business hour activity, talks to a known database, and stores predictable records. Then, over the course of a weekend, the application begins making many unusual requests to a sensitive financial data source, processes an abnormally large number of queries under one employee account, and triggers backend errors tied to unexpected input values. The application itself may still appear available on Monday morning, and ordinary users may not notice anything obvious. But from an analyst's point of view, several anomalies have stacked together. The timing is wrong, the data access is unusual, the volume is abnormal, and the request pattern does not fit the normal function of the application. That does not yet prove whether the cause is a bug, misuse, or compromise, but it clearly justifies investigation. This is what makes anomaly detection so valuable. It can expose important danger before a visible business failure forces everyone to pay attention. Common misconceptions are worth clearing up because they can make beginners either overconfident or overly alarmed. One misconception is that anomaly detection means any behavior outside the baseline is malicious. That is not true, because environments change and many anomalies turn out to be harmless or operational in nature. Another misconception is that if an application is still working, it is probably safe. In reality, many compromised applications continue delivering their main function while simultaneously being abused in the background. Some learners also assume that only security tools can detect anomalies, but thoughtful analysts often notice them through patterns in logs, usage records, support complaints, and change mismatches long before a single automated alert tells the full story. Finally, some people think anomaly detection replaces all other detection methods. It does not. It complements them. Known attack patterns remain important, but anomaly detection helps reveal behavior that has not yet been cataloged neatly or that is intentionally trying to hide inside normal-looking activity. As you bring these ideas together, the lasting lesson is that application behavior and anomaly detection are really about understanding software as an active part of the business, not just a passive tool sitting in the background. Every application has a role, a set of normal relationships, and a pattern of expected activity. When those patterns change in meaningful ways, defenders gain a chance to spot misuse, compromise, exploitation, or operational weakness before the impact becomes much larger. Baselines, context, user behavior, system interactions, and business knowledge all help turn strange activity into something interpretable instead of mysterious. For someone studying CySA+, this matters because many real-world incidents leave their clearest early signs in the behavior of trusted applications doing untrusted things. If you learn to ask what this application is supposed to do, what changed, and whether that change fits a legitimate reason, you will be much better prepared to notice security problems that do not announce themselves loudly, but still matter a great deal.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.